and thank you for joining us on the Person to Person Network. Welcome to Profiles in STEM. Our career series will feature an amazing STEM professional who is shaping lives and building the future. I'm your host, Katie Culbert, and joining me today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Andrew Vershon. Dr. Vershon is a professor at the Waksman Institute in the Department of Molecular Biology and Biochemistry. He's also the undergraduate chair in the Department of Molecular Biology and Biochemistry and the director of the graduate program in Microbiology and Molecular Genetics. And he is also the co-director of the Waxman Student Scholars Program. Dr. Vershon, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. So, Dr. Vershon, let's step back in time. Can you tell us about a specific moment that inspired you to first pursue a career in STEM?
Yes, so I went to a very, very small college in Vermont, and it was mainly a liberal arts college with a lot of art and dance majors and drama majors. And I was one of the few scientists there. And this college, what they wanted to do at the time, and was very advanced for the college, was to have internships. And so they closed down for the months of January and February every year, and students went off to different places to do internships in what they wanted to do. Remember, this is back in 1975, 76. And so I spent my first internship was at Tufts University Medical School. And I was working on a project to look at how red blood cells developed and what happened to the nuclei. And I really got interested in that whole project and carrying out the experiments. And that's where I started to really learn to love doing research. And then I followed that up in further internships the following years at UMass Medical School as well.
Wow, that's a really great story. And I'm glad your school started setting up internships because that helped you to find out that you really enjoyed research. So I see that after obtaining your doctorate from MIT, you spent the bulk of your career at Rutgers, where you wear many hats. We actually met through your work at the Waksman Institute, specifically through the Waxman Student Scholars Program, where you currently serve as the co-director. Can you provide us with an overview of that program and your duties in that program?
Okay, so a lot of this stems from my internship way back in undergraduate. And it was there that, again, I learned that I really want to do science as opposed to business or medicine or something else. And so when I came as a junior professor to Rutgers, one of the projects that we had was to involve other undergraduates in our major in research as well. And so we started to develop a research course to help students, learn how to do some of the research so they then could go and work in individual labs on campus. And in developing that course, we also paired up with two professors, Bill Sofer and the late George Powrand, who initiated the Waxman Student Scholars Program. And what their goal is to reach out to high schools and to bring authentic research into the high school classroom. And so together we wrote a grant to the Howard Hughes Medical Institute and got a large amount of money, not only to set up the undergraduate program and course, but also to set up to further develop the high school program, the WSSP. And so that's how I became involved in that project. And I was co-director for a long time, and now I'm director. And again, the goal of that is to bring authentic research into the high school classrooms. And so we have a number of different ways of doing that, both for local schools here in New Jersey, and we also run more distance-related programs for students across the nation and even in other countries.
Yeah, that was a really great program. I learned so many things from that, and I'm so glad that you guys had that program available to high school students like me. So, Dr. Vershon, what do you enjoy most about conducting research?
The discovery, finding something new, sort of trying to pose a question and go, all right, how does this work? And what my research focused, at least here at Rutgers, was on how genes are regulated. And so we used a very simple model system, the yeast Saccharomyces cerevisiae, or baker's yeast. And what we do is study how genes are turned on or off there. And so what we did was isolate mutations in the proteins that are involved in that regulation and tried to understand what their role was. And the goal behind that research was that many of the proteins we work on in yeast are similar to human proteins. And so we can do things in yeast to make mutations and purify the proteins and study them that are not feasible or not ethical to do in humans, but we can learn from the yeast how those human proteins work. And so I like trying to figure out how do things work and how do these proteins regulate whether genes are turned on or off, which is an important aspect of biology in terms of development and also cancer. Cancer is just uncontrolled growth caused by genes that are misexpressed. And so our research hopefully will aid to that understanding. And so that's why I like it.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you. And I think many scientists can agree with you on that discovery is one of the coolest aspects of research. And like you said, a lot of the research that you do is very important, and it could maybe one day lead to cancer research and hopefully with a cure for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dr. Vershon, you're both an undergraduate chair as well as the director of the graduate programs. Can
Mm-hmm.
you describe some of the key differences when you are working with undergraduate versus graduate students?
Okay, so undergraduates are early, usually pretty early in their education, at least research education and exposure to sciences. So the goal of the undergraduates is to sort of bring them on, and they have to learn a lot of the background, and that's in the courses. But what I also try to do is to help place them in labs and get them involved in research, because that's where, again, I learned a lot about research and where I learned that I liked, that it was something I wanted to do. And so there we try to provide a more nurturing environment and sort of bring them through. And you know, the goal is just to get them into the lab and give them that experience so that they sort of understand the process of science. How do we generate the information that they learned in all of their textbooks in biochemistry or genetics or cell biology? Graduate students, on the other hand, are of course more advanced. They've already had some research experience even before they've entered into graduate school. They take a couple courses their first year, but their main goal is to work in labs. And so what I do is I monitor how they're doing. So they come into the program, take a couple courses, and they try a bunch of different labs to sort of see which one fits best for them. And then the main part of their graduate work is just working in the lab, doing the research. And so I monitor how they're doing to make sure that they're progressing. You know, we don't want them here forever. We want them to graduate within a certain time frame. And so that means, you know, having yearly meetings to make sure that they're hitting their progress and you know, developing their project and hopefully writing papers and publishing papers and giving talks at meetings. And because those are the important things of communicating their work to other scientists. And that's how it will help them advance their careers to the next step, whether it's a postdoc in academics or whether they're going to work in industry. And then maybe eventually, if they go on to being a professor, those sort of skills that they learned as a graduate student may help them down the road.
Yeah, I think it's really great that you have the undergraduate students be involved in labs to make sure that they like what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the best way to learn is to do it hands-on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
then,
motto of our program, I should say. That the Scholars Program is students learn science best by doing science. So we want students to get involved at all levels, high school, college, and graduate.
yeah. And then with the graduate students, I think it's great that you guys kind of narrow it down so they can find what they like best about
Mhm.
research and like what aspects they like. And then that can help them in their careers later on so that they know what jobs they want to do. So, since you have to balance all your responsibilities between teaching, research, and advising, can you provide us with a snapshot of what a typical day is like for you?
Well, so once you get up to a certain point, you do less science and more administration. And because I took on the responsibility of being an undergraduate director and graduate director in the scholars program, I do a lot more administration than research. And so a lot of my day-to-day work is just, you know, meeting with people, answering emails, writing reports, you know, working towards, you know, making sure that the students on all levels, on high school, college, and graduate, are, you know, getting into the labs and are progressing well. And so I spend a lot of my time monitoring students and and meeting with professors and making sure that everything is progressing well. Early in my career, I did a lot more research. And then, my day would be mainly, interacting with graduate students and postdocs and undergraduates who were in my lab, discussing their results, interacting with them, trying to figure out, all right, what do the results mean? What would be the next question? How do we design experiments? And going through that and looking at their data. And then also, of course, writing papers and writing grant proposals, which would help fund our research for further down the road.
Well, you sound like a very busy man. Earlier, when I had to state all your titles, it was so much to say at once. So you are definitely an important man on campus.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Vershon, we've explored a lot of area today, and you certainly have a very busy yet very interesting life too.
Mhm.
So, is there something else you would like to share with our audience as they explore STEM and careers in STEM?
I think it's really important to get involved and to try it. Some of our undergraduates get into a lab and they absolutely love it. And so that changes their career focus. And they may have been pre-med, destined, but they get into a lab and they decide they really like research. Other students get in the lab and just it doesn't work out for them. And that is actually a success because it's important to figure out what you do or don't like. And, if you get into a lab and do the research and you love it, that's fantastic. That could be a career option for you. But if you get in there and it doesn't work, then that says, all right, that's something I don't want to do. Let's explore other options. And the best thing is to try things out, especially early in your career, and look at different avenues because it's a long life. And so, we want you to all explore and to realize what is the best path for you. And so that's my advice.
That's really great advice. And it's very true. You always have to try things to learn what you like because you don't really know if you like something unless you try it. And you want to make sure in this long life, like you stated, you're doing something that you enjoy so it doesn't get boring.
Exactly. I know I'm in the right job because every day I get up and I'm excited to come to work. I like what I'm doing, and that's important. Hopefully, everyone can find a job that is like that, so that they're excited to come to work and advance themselves.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. You should always be excited to wake up every morning. So, I would like to thank my guest, Dr. Andrew Vershon. Dr. Vershon, it was really great speaking with you today. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I hope you all do well. Right?
Yes. And to our viewers, please join us again for another exciting episode and another remarkable STEM professional. You have been listening to Profiles in STEM. Thank you. Katie Culbert signing off.